Review, as you are about to see, is the account of the tragedy which befell a group of action figures. It is all the more tragic in that they were plastic, but had they sat on the shelves a very, very long time, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and the macabre as they would see that day. For them, an idyllic review would soon become a nightmare. The events of that review were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of internet history. Outside the box reviews, Texas Chain Saw Week.
Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the NECA Texas Chain Saw Massacre Ultimate Leatherface figure. And this is what Texas Chain Saw Week has been building up to, the brand new NECA Leatherface figure from the original film, given the ultimate treatment, meaning more accessories and more articulation. And we've gotten a few ultimate figures so far, but if memory serves me right, this is only the second horror figure, following after Freddy Krueger from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And just like with Freddy, NECA had already done a version of Leatherface just like this. I never picked up that figure from the Cult Classics line, mostly because by the time I was starting to pick up a lot of Leatherfaces to do these reviews, I realized this one was coming. It was definitely going to serve as a replacement, but I am very, very curious to see what NECA did with this character and all the cool stuff they gave him. One of the best things about the Ultimate line is all the accessories. So here we have a cleaver. Looks really, really nicely done. We got the little hole up there at the top, a nice silver paint job to it. A little notch taken out of the back there, and a really nicely detailed wood handle. Very, very cool looking piece. We get a knife, a curved blade, a very ornate kind of horn handle with a tassel hanging off of it. This is a little harder to get in his hand because of this tassel being hard sculpted. You kind of have to put his hand around this top part, so it's kind of on the blade a bit, which is kind of strange, but it's a nice looking accessory. We get the hammer, which is a very iconic weapon in the film, a nice silver head to it, and then a wooden handle. Very cool. We get a meat hook, and this is absolutely fantastic. With the eyelet up here at the top, so you could hang it off something if you wanted to. It's a nice silver piece, and then a bloody red J-hook down here at the bottom. So if you have any victims you want to hang up on this, you probably could. My only complaint is I wish we had more of these to just make a whole diorama full of nasty, nasty hooks. And of course, last but not least is the iconic chainsaw. And of all the different versions of this chainsaw we've gotten, I think this is the best detailed ever. Tons and tons of great sculpting and paint apps here. You can see all the little mechanical pieces are detailed out. You can even see the blade inside the bottom of it, all the inner workings there. There's a lot of scuffed off paint. You can see the silver coming out through the yellow. There's blood splatter all over it. The handle has a nice wrapping on it to give it some cool added realism. Vents and pieces up at the top. The handle back here is a little gummy. It makes it easier to put in his hand. It also makes me wary that it's going to break. And then the blade here, really nice, very detailed with all the teeth on it. A great splattering of blood. Probably the best blood effect I've seen on a chainsaw in a while, just because it actually looks like it makes sense. It isn't just painted on there with thick brush strokes. And the teeth from the top, you can see look pretty good. The amount of detail NECA crammed into Leatherface's mask is really, really impressive. We have the cut up here on his forehead, all the stitching around it, which looks very, very nice. The eyebrows, the sunken in eyes there, his gnarly looking teeth, even little metal rods on the side of the mask. You got the ears popping out with the real ears behind them tucked away, and the big bunch of hair sticking out the top, which has some nice detail on it, some nice paint shading to it as well. Something about the face seems a little lacking, and I think it's just the fact that usually when we see it in the film, part of it's in shadow, so having this large area here on either side, which is pretty accurate to the film, but just seeing it kind of just looks off to my eye just because I'm so used to seeing him in dynamic lighting. The head is removable. And then we could pop on the old lady mask, which I think is really, really cool. We've got the ripped up part down here on the lower lips. You can see more of his face underneath. His eyes are very visible through it. A lot of great stitching on here. A lot of very exposed parts of his head because it's a kind of incomplete mask. He's got the hair on top with a nice bald spot and the rip going through it, which I love. You can even see his hair underneath it, which is a fantastic touch. I think it's a really, really well done sculpt here. Really well done paint-wise as well. And I think it's really cool they included it. It's not seen in the movie too much, but definitely cool to have. I really like the way NECA did the body here on Leatherface. They actually gave him kind of a vinyl apron here, so it's not actually sculpted onto the body at all. It's a free-floating piece. Similar to what Mezco did with their Series 3 Leatherface, where it was a rubberized piece, but the fact that this is vinyl just gives it much better of a feel. It kind of lets it move around. Some nice stitching throughout it, and a lot of blood splatter over top of it, which is cool. Underneath, he has his classic shirt, so it's the brown tan shirt shirt with a bunch of lines in it. Underneath we have his tie, which is well done in a soft rubbery plastic. We have more lines down the sleeves, and we have his bare arms, which are very, very dirty, which fixes a problem I had with the retro style Leatherface where his arms are very clean, and then his hands continue that on. Lots of veiny details on there. The fingernails are detailed out. Both hands look really good. Then we have his bracelet here on his wrist on his left side, which is really cool. My biggest gripe with the apron is similar to the one that I had with the retro figure. The tie in the back just seems wrong. It doesn't really fit in the scale almost, just because it sticks out at weird angles. This is a little better being that vinyl instead of being the kind of ribbon they used on the other one, but still not my favorite piece, but fortunately it's on the back. The back of his shirt detailed very much the same way as the rest of them. And we've got his pants down here. We have the pockets sculpted back there, the wrinkles on his legs. You could lift up the apron, see a little more detail, but his pants are pretty plain. And then we have his cowboy boots down here at the bottom, looking very nice. For articulation, Leatherface is loaded. We have a ball joint at the base of the neck. He can't really look up because of the way his hair is sculpted, but he can look down a bit, move his head side to side pretty easily, as well as tilt. He has pin socket shoulders, so they'll go out to the side quite a bit, as well as forward and back. The shoulder's kind of rubberized, so it actually really doesn't hinder his arm movement, which is great. At the elbow, he can bend about a full 90 degrees, as well as rotate. We have a ball joint at the wrist, so it'll swivel as well as move a little in and out. We have a ball joint at the waist, so it'll go forward, back, side to side really easily, as well as tilt a little bit. Not so much in the forward and back movement just because of how chunky he is through here, but you do get that movement. The legs are on pin socket joints, so go forward, back, as well as out to the side. The lower torso is that diaper, soft rubber material, so we'll let him move pretty freely. We'll rotate the upper leg, bend at the knee just about 45 degrees, as well as rotate. And then we have a ball joint at the foot, which isn't too hindered despite the fact that his pants are kind of covering up part of the boot. And here's our new Ultimate Leatherface next to two other characters I have from the original film. On the right, we have the NECA Cult Classics Dinner Suit Leatherface, which is a fairly old figure at this point. And on the left, we have the Mezco Cinema Fear Wave 3 Hitchhiker figure. And I don't think he looks horrible next to this version of Leatherface, so at least we can kind of have two figures side by side from this movie. And here's Leatherface next to two super articulated horror legends from NECA. On the left, we have the Part 4 Jason Voorhees. Not technically an Ultimate figure, but if you have the two of these figures together, they basically make up an Ultimate Jason from Part 4. And on the right, we have the original Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy. So if you're looking to build up just a slasher icon display, maybe you don't want to go quite as deep as I have with some of these figures, all the different variations. I think this Leatherface, the Ultimate Freddy, and your pick of Jasons, but there is the Ultimate Part 6 coming out very soon, would make a very, very cool looking display. Now we just gotta convince the Akkads to reach a deal with NECA to do Michael Myers, and we will be set, at least for the big four of 70s, 80s slashers. And this Ultimate Leatherface figure is absolutely phenomenal. The accessories are great, the sculpt is great, the paint is great, the apron's done pretty much the best I've ever seen it done on an action figure, still allowing a great range of articulation while looking pretty darn good in the process, though I do have some gripes about it. And this is just an absolutely solid figure. I'm so happy NECA did Texas Chain Saw. While Leatherface is iconic, it's definitely the lesser of the large horror franchises from that era. And my biggest disappointment with this figure is knowing that while NECA's probably going to do Part 2 and maybe even Part 3 in the retro format, it seems unlikely that we'll get them in 7-inch plastic form, because if they could bring the amount of detail and coolness they do to this one to some of those later versions of Leatherface, I think they would be spectacular. Hell, if they put out a Part 3 in this scale, I would stop longing after that Mezco one that never got released. So, an extremely high recommend goes to this Leatherface figure. Just an absolutely fantastic piece. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, we've got one more to go. So Texas Chainsaw Week continues next.